had a request to do another pre-flight of my Helicycle video. I appreciated the interest in it, so I'll do a little bit more thorough one here. Here I am going to walk up, and I'll start here at the tail. One thing I always check here is freedom on this shaft here. I have had this sleeve here bind up on me. In fact, one time I was trying to land and it was stuck quite a bit, and it would be yaw left, and I'd give it right pedal, and it wouldn't. I couldn't stop it, and it kept going back and forth, and finally I got it centered, and then I just gently set it down. Came back here, and I was pulling on this, and I literally could not move this thing. It must have gotten a piece of dirt in the sand or in the grease here. So I started using Marvel mystery oil on here instead of the grease, and the problem. I haven't had a bit of problem since. Part of my pre-flight, I just come back here, wipe the shaft, put a couple drops of oil, rotate the tail rotor 180 degrees, put another drop or two, slide it, and I'm good to go. I haven't had any problems the last 30 hours with it. The tail box, rotor or gearbox here has a oil level here, you can see. I have a place for a chip detector on this, but I'm not convinced that they aren't going to be causing a lot of false readings, so I just change this oil like every 5 hours. It's only like a little bit in a cup, so, and then I can monitor it, look at it for filings and everything. These little pitch links, you just kind of rotate them and check, make sure they're in the middle of the movement. You don't want this eye bolt jammed here and there, so you got to see a little pivoting, and you check that. You check your safety wires. There's some grease zerks here. There's 11 grease zerks on this whole machine that you grease every 5 hours, just like a half a shot. This delta hinge here, you get in here and you take two hands. I can only do it with one now, but you feel for just the very slightest movement. It's just a few thousandths there, and then if it starts getting like a 32nd of an inch slop, that would be like 30 thousandths. That's when you've got to take it apart and reshim it and get that down to specs. Stuff like you check your bolts. I always like to rotate all my drive shaft bolts around. I've got torque seal on all the bolts. Just check for anything moving. This here is a vent that vents my oil up into the tail, and if it did go out, it'd go out down at the bottom, but I haven't had any issues with that. Excuse me. And you just come down the tail here. Post-flight, I'll feel these bearings, just touch them and just see if they're warm or nothing. And the same way with the tail rotor gearbox. I'm going to put some teletemp stickers on here, but the thing runs so cool, I'll just put my hand on it right after a flight, and it's just barely warm. That's good enough for me. Yeah, you check the security of the batteries. I've got dual batteries on here, and you just look for wires. This machine is set up like here's the main power. You could lose all the power here, lose the regulator. The machine will still run. I've got a backup system on it. This is a main fuel solenoid valve that I changed out. They normally come out with this closed when you lose your voltage, which means the turbine goes quiet on you. So I didn't like the idea of having to have it a live circuit all the time. So I asked the factory to change this out to a NO, which is normally open. So now, with this just sitting here, this valve is open, and it doesn't need 12 volts to start it, but it takes 12 volts to shut it down. So I have a backup system for that. This is the fuel control arm. Right here is where you get all the horses out of this beast. It's set for about 100 horses right now. Just the turn of this set screw right there that limits the backward travel of this arm will get it up to 155 to 160 horse, which is way too much for this machine. 100 will do more than you want to do with it. BJ Schramm designed The clutch here, these belts will slip at about 100 horses. You check it by occasionally, every 10 hours taking this bolt out. This is an over center clutch. This little electric motor pulls this arm down, and about right in here it goes over center. Well, you put a spring scale on there and you check the tension on the belts, and there's a certain number, like 45 pounds, that should go over center. That tells you the belts are properly tensioned. If, like some unfortunately do, they'll set them maybe another 10 pounds just so they can go maybe 120 mile an hour, but I do not want to do that. I had a experience with over torquing this thing once, and I fortunately had a successful auto rotation because of it. I don't want to exceed those limits again. There's other things to check here. This is, you check your pitch links up here, just the integrity of all the controls. I've got torque seal on everything. The drag links up here, and again the torque seal. You look, just look at the bolts. You wrap a coin on these. I had to make all these doublers and bond them to the blades, but you wrap a coin on them. Just listen for a hollow sound showing it's, maybe the glue's coming loose or something. But I don't know of anybody having any problems with them. If you notice, I went for a polished blade. The things are like a mirror. I don't have to ever worry about these things going out of balance because of the paint coming off of them. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I just love that stuff. I use purple on it, and of course there's some steps to properly get the finish on it. You have to have a good foundation of finally sanding it down in finer increments, and then using the polish with I used a power buffer on it. Made sure I kept holding my hand on it so I wouldn't get it warm, or only warm, and I ended up with that finish on it, and I'm really happy with it. I can just tickle pink about it. And here's more controls. I'm just, you come down here underneath. I've got the gascolator right there, and I put a little fuel cup in there to strain it and look for any contaminants. There's a filter in there too, and occasionally I'll take it apart and look. You check your control linkages there for all the left-right cyclic and collective movements, freedom of movement. And you check the security. This is the throttle control potentiometer there that runs it from idle at 45,000 to 62,000 flight RPM, or actually it's about 61,500. And other than that, underneath, these are some reinforcing cables that I've installed on my gear. If I'll stand back here, you can kind of see how the gear, if you can imagine those cables there, this greatly strengthens the gear from collapsing if you had to do a hard run-on landing, which I did do one time. It wasn't hard, but it was a 40-mile-an-hour run-on landing in grass, and I don't think she would have held up, according to the history of some of the others that have done a lot softer run-on landings. Anyway, a little mod I had. That's my little camera mount. I just screwed my camera there, and I've been getting some real smooth videos from that. Now inside here is this cockpit. You can see a couple switches here. I had this fuel pump break off the other day flying. I was the plastic toggle came off, and Doug on my checkout told me to switch these out because he didn't like them. Well, I switched two, and I've got 3 more to put in. I'm going to change this bank out real quick. I like the looks of them. They're metal, not plastic, and they don't stick out as far, so I think that's going to be better. And I've just got the typical instruments here. Just check everything. You check your cyclic, fore, aft, left, right, and your collective. You check the freedom here. There's the collective friction. I can screw down and fly hands free on that. And you look back here and see everything moving, left and right. I check in there to make sure there's plenty of clearance for, so I don't have any mass bumping. And up here is well, this is where it really will mass bump up here. With that rubber hose that is secured on top. I checked that. And just walk around, check the windscreen, anything loose, integrity of the skids, and over on this side, check the fuel level and all that. Just typical stuff. I'm just kind of panning here. This here is my fuel for the oil tank for the turbine. I made me a little cap on here, the dipstick, so I checked the oil level on that. Post-flight, I always just unscrew it to see where the oil level is here, and then I just keep an eye on it. I've got an oil pressure switch that I've just installed on my main transmission. I put an 8-pounder on there, and it was coming on once in a while and made me nervous, so I put a 2-pound switch that ended a problem. So that's a low pressure in there, and so now if I ever lost a line here, all the oil went out in flight, I wouldn't have any way of telling it except for a severe transmission noise going on finally. But I would immediately see a red light in my dash, and I'd just come in and land immediately. I also have an oil pressure switch on the turbine also now. I love that thing. One other thing I put on, let's see if I can, I'll have to go around to the other side. On the fuel control arm back here, I installed a little micro switch, and if you can see that when this turbine is demanding full power, like on that time I was pulling hard collective, that will turn a light on in my dash telling me that I am really pulling hard. Since I put that on, I have not been able to turn that light on, but I haven't been trying it. I'm just increasing my collective inputs, and maybe someday I'll see it asking for 100 horse, but so far, no. Probably when we get to higher temperatures and higher density altitude, then I will, up in the summer. So I'm sure I will get the light on sometime. And underneath here, this is the spark, or the exciter there that gives it the spark to start. You rotate this backwards and look for all the magnets for the alternator there. And of course you check all the bearings. This is just a real rough pre-flight, but one other thing you do, you reach in here in the turbine wheel and I can grab the turbine in there, and I try to see if there's any play at all in the bearing. I rotate it 90 degrees at a time, feel it, pull it sideways, up and down. Usually the only thing I find is a bunch of soot on my sleeve from that coal black exhaust right there. I did put a heat shield. The angle of this exhaust, I had it down just a little bit too much last summer. I was marking my spot. Every place I'd land, I'd burn their yard. So I've turned this up, put a sacrificial heat shield up here, and that is saving my frame from heat. This Teleflex cable's got rubber on it. Hasn't even, doesn't even get warm. It's perfect. This here is actually cooked paint, but it's not. That's what the shield's for, to keep the heat away from there. And I didn't want to start cooking my powder coat on the frame there. Other than that, that's it for a basic pre-flight. And then every once in a while I go over it real thoroughly. I'll show you a few more grease zerks. There's 11 of them. There's one. There's some up here, a pair of them. There's a pair on that side, and then there's one up on top here. And all in all, it's been a very easy machine to maintain. You almost have to look for something to do on it. It's been the easiest thing I've had to fly and work on so far. I underline so far. Of course, there could be adjustment issues later on. I'll find out. I'll tell the story as it happens. But so far, it's just been it's gas trembling and ready to go all the time. Okay, I'll shut this off, and thanks for watching.